It's not possible.
I didn't say it would be easy, Neo.
Good morning. The Committee on Parole is called to order. Today's date is May the 1st, 2014, and the time is 9:50. My name is Carolyn Stapleton, and I am serving as the chairman of today's parole panel. My colleagues on the panel today are to my right, Mr. Pete Freeman, and to my left, Ms. Jerry Ledoux. The panel today is at DOC headquarters in Baton Rouge. Staff, would you please introduce yourself for the record?
Carla Williams.
Francis Abbott.
Today, our remote location is at Hunt Correctional. Would the staff at the facility please introduce yourself?
Good morning, Madam Chairman. Joe Buttress, Assistant Warden. And I'm by myself this morning.
Okay. Would you please introduce yourself, Mr. Keith, starting with your name and your DOC number for the record?
Yes, ma'am. Audie Keith, 393-128.
I will read some information into the record and ask you to verify it. I will then conduct a parole interview. Your case has been signed to me, Carolyn Stapleton. Who will take the lead on the interview. Once the interview is completed, we'll ask the warden for his input. We'll also allow public comment. The supporters will be able to make a statement in support today. And we have in support for you, Adrienne Hutchinson, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I'm the attorney.
Okay. And Mr. Andrew Hunley, who is on Zoom. Okay. And you're with the Parole Project, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Those in opposition will be allowed to make a statement today. And these are their names. They're all on Zoom, other than the DA, she is here. So on Zoom will be the victim's wife, Kathy Walker, the victim's son, Matt Rowland, the victim's sister, Linda Rowland. In attendance on Zoom watching will be a friend, David Henderson, and also the victim's daughter, Emily Poop. The district attorney from Caddo is here at headquarters, and her name is Leon Fitzgerald. At the end, you will be allowed to make a statement on your behalf before the panel votes. Now, I'm going to read into record your name and your DOC number is Audie Keith. Your DOC number is 393-128. Your offense is first-degree murder. Your sentencing date was 1/27/1998. I'm sorry. Your sentence is for life. Your parole date is December 30th, 2021. Good time you're not eligible for. Your full-time date is life. At this time, we will have your supporter input. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead and start the interview.
Oh, I'll do the question. I'm sorry. Okay.
Madam
Mr. Keith. Pardon?
We have a couple of guests here that need to introduce themselves, and I believe one of them is speaking.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, we're updating. If y'all could go ahead and introduce yourself for the record, and please state your name and relationship to the offender.
Connie Allen, I'm the mother.
Okay.
Brittany Angley, and I'm Audie's sister.
And who will be speaking today?
I will be speaking. Connie Allen, on behalf of Audie.
Thank you, ma'am. Go
Yes,
ahead,
sir.
ma'am. Go ahead with your interview, Ms. Carolyn.
Okay. My interview is, for you, Mr. Keith, as I see that you were 16 years old when this crime occurred. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And also, I saw that you said that there was another person involved that held a gun to you and told you that you had to shoot this man. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then how you complete it and tell me what all happened.
Excuse me. I didn't hear you.
You tell me the rest of what happened in that event, that this man was holding a gun to you. What was your relationship with this man and what happened?
Yes, ma'am. I just became short-term friends with him. I've only been in the neighborhood a few months. Brief acquaintance. He pulled a gun on me. He went over a plot is what he did of what he wanted to do to Mr. Rowland. And I was refusing participation with what was he had planned. And we made a trip to the grocery store because one of my co-defendants said she needed to go grocery shopping. So we went grocery shopping. And my co-defendant, Mr. Irish, he asked Miss Christy Klein to stop at the gas station and make a phone call to call Mr. Rowland to come pick up rent money. He didn't get in contact with him. He talked to his secretary. So we went grocery shopping and came back. And he stopped again, made a phone call, and said he did in fact talk to Mr. Rowland. He said Mr. Rowland was going to come and pick up his rent money between 3 and 3:30. We got back to the house. I put in a movie. Miss Klein put up the dishes, and a short time later, she said that Mr. Rowland's here. He's here. She took off running to the back of the house, and that's when Mr. Irish came up through the hallway, and Mr. Rowland was in the door, and he had the rifle in his hand. He normally keeps all of his guns directly behind the chair that I was sitting in, and he told me that he wanted me to shoot him, and I was shocked. I didn't know what to do. I'd never been in a situation like this before. I was scared. So he picked it, he cocked the gun and pointed at me and said, "You better shoot." I grabbed the gun and I shot him.
And what happened?
He fell backwards onto the porch. Mr. Irish came up to me, took the shotgun from me. He attempted to cock it and shoot him again with the same gun. It jammed up. He put it down and he picked the 30-30 rifle up and he stood over Mr. Rowland and he shot Mr. Rowland in the head. Before Mr. Rowland, he begged for his life. Then he told me to go to the truck. I was still scared to death. I didn't know what to do. Be witnessing this and being directly involved in it, even though I refused to participate, I was still actively involved in it. I went to the truck and retrieved Mr. Rowland's wallet and brought it back and gave it to Mr. Irish.
Mr. Rowland was dead at that time.
Yes, ma'am.
Then what happened?
I left the residence and went across the street to try and get some help. Nobody would help. They told me to leave. I went to another friend's house. A short time later, my mother and my stepfather come and pick me up, and they brought me back to the scene of the crime. And we talked to the detectives, and the detectives advised my mother to bring me home, wait for a little while, and bring me to the sheriff's station, which they did.
Who called the police?
Jason Williams called the police. They said he called 911.
You heard the gunshots or you went there? How do you know about it? He heard the gunshots or he was there or you went to him or what?
He came through after everything was, after Mr. Rowland was dead, he showed up.
I see. And then he saw it and then he went ahead and called for help.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, today you have strong opposition from law enforcement and there's nothing you can do about that. I see that, you know, you've been taking a lot of classes and you've been taking carpentry classes and you've gotten certified. And, you got your GED, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. And, you want to name a few other classes?
I'm currently going into my second year of HVAC school.
Uh-huh.
Better Man is sponsored by Malachi Daz. Thinking for a Change, as well as when I came to Hunt, I implemented myself into the community to try and make a difference with the younger people that are here that are at risk, the young adults. And I co-facilitate Thinking for a Change, and I facilitate Better Man after partaking in that class. And I graduated. I took the torch and I started leading the community with that as well.
That's wonderful. At this time, I'm going to pass, the questioning over to my fellow board member, Mr. Freeman.
Okay, Mr. Danny, let me ask you this. You claim that you did not want to do it, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. But yet you were the first one that shot, right?
Yes, sir.
Why didn't you shoot the guy making you do it? Why did you shoot an innocent man?
I've never been in a situation like that before. I had a gun pointed at me. I didn't know what to do.
Okay. Why were y'all robbing? You needed money for drugs? What was going on in your life at that time?
I was in school. I was on Christmas break. That was just somewhere we went out to hang out with on the weekends.
Okay.
I was new to the neighborhood. We just moved back to Shreveport from Ruston, Louisiana.
And after all of this, as nervous and scared as you were, you ran to the truck and got his wallet, correct?
Yes, sir.
And Miss Klein stayed there to clean up the blood, correct?
Yes, sir.
How long did y'all plan this? Was it planned earlier that day? How was it planned?
He wasn't over talking about doing, but he talked about doing all kinds of crimes and nothing never came about it. We all, excuse me, I didn't hear you. Could you please?
No, sir. I'm listening to you, sir.
Okay. He always talked about committing other crimes and never done any of them. Everybody thought he was just talking. So, you know, I didn't pay no attention to his words. I didn't realize the weight that his words carried at that time.
Okay, I have no further question.
Okay, Ms. Ledoux?
I would like to ask Mr. Keith, do you have a child? It says in the record you did, but
Yes, ma'am.
so you went to prison 16
16.
and you have a child from prior to that.
Yes, ma'am. Prior to prison, yes, ma'am.
Are you currently receiving any psychiatric treatment?
No, ma'am.
I know they did some personality assessments on you, or you rather. So it's not unusual to have a significant number of write-ups when you go to jail as long as you did. Your last write-up was in 2019, a 21C. Why haven't you had any write-ups since then?
Because I started implementing myself in the self-help classes and I was realizing the mistake that I was making. I needed to better myself, to become a better person.
There's one last question. We have significant amount of information in this record. And I'm not able to locate it right at this minute, but I read in a record that you had some problems at your resentencing. Do you remember being in court for resentencing?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Did anything happen during that time in court that indicated that you may not have had the best attitude?
Yes, ma'am. I kind of outbursted. It was at a time where I'd never seen my attorney. I felt like that I was by myself, I was all alone, I followed all the motions. And I felt this is my only chance at freedom. And when this man showed up in the courtroom and he told the judge that he had been coming to see me, I never had any contact with him, correspondence, letters, phone calls, visits, didn't reach out to none of my family members. And he showed up to court and I kind of like, I used profane language.
I just wondered, thank you for explaining that. That explanation is helpful. I don't have any further questions.
Okay, at this time, we're going to speak to your supporters that are there at, with Miss Hutchinson. Oh, she was the class, okay. Well, then your sister that's there. Your sister, what's her name? I'm sorry.
Madam Chairman, I think it's his mother that wishes to speak.
Oh, the mother, okay, the mother. Would you like to speak, ma'am? On behalf. Okay, and I'm sorry, what is your name again?
My name is Connie Nowlin.
Nowlin?
Nowlin. Nowlin.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nowlin. Okay, you can, on behalf of your son.
Yes, ma'am. I'm here to speak on behalf of my family. We have been in full support of him as much as possible. Sending materials for his training in his HVAC school. We are here for him for whatever he needs, in full support. We pray for him and pray that for mercy on the court. And I know he's apologized to the family before, but we want to apologize on our behalf as well, because we know that this is something that could have been prevented, but it wasn't. And I do apologize for the loss of Mr. Rowland, for the anguish and hurt that's happened in the family, from the pit of my heart.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you very much for your statement, ma'am. At this time, we will hear from Andrew Hundley by way of Zoom.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Andrew Hundley, Executive Director of Louisiana Parole Project. We're here today on behalf of Audie Keith to express our organization's intent to provide Audie reentry support if he is released by this board. First, I'd like to start off by acknowledging this was certainly a senseless crime that Audie participated in. We're here today, and Audie's here today because of the U.S. Supreme Court's decisions in Miller and Montgomery and Act 277 of the 2017 legislative session that provided individuals like Audie parole eligibility. As this board's aware, our organization has provided reentry support for the juvenile lifers affected by those decisions that have been released over the last several years. Nearly all of them have done their reentry with Louisiana Parole Project. So we don't take every client who applies for our support. We screen them, and what we've found with Audie is that he has consistently displayed remorse for his actions, taken responsibility with all interactions with our organization, and he has a record of rehabilitation and growth, especially over the last several years. If Audie were to be released, he would not return to the Caddo area. He would be housed in our residential reentry program in Baton Rouge. He would go through extensive reentry programming with our organization. He would have access to our staff social worker and undergo multiple assessments. We would meet all of his mental health and other related needs, and we'd provide him that housing for as long as it took for him to work towards self-sufficiency. In light of the skills that Audie's earned during his incarceration, we believe that he could enter the workforce and eventually become self-sufficient. But in summary, we just wanted to offer our commitment to the board that if Audie is released, we commit to providing him long-term housing and reentry support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunley. At this time, we speak to the warden, please. Do you have
Yes,
anything
ma'am.
you'd like to say?
First of all, my heart goes out to the victim's family for their courage, and participating in this hearing today. Audie got here from, Angola in 2022. And, since he's been here, he has been working on himself. He didn't mention that he also took victim impact training, here at the prison. In March of 2023, became a trustee and has remained in that custody level since then. So he's been a trustee for a little over a year. He is participating in our HVAC school, and he does assist our maintenance department with various HVAC projects and some on-the-job training that he's going through right now. He hasn't been an issue for us, and everything else that I think that he mentioned is confirmed in the record.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I will ask to speak to your attorney at Hunt Correctional. Ms. Hutchinson, please.
She usually go after Mr.
Oh, wait a minute. After Mr. Audie?
After Mr. Auditor.
Okay,
We'll wait to the end and she'll close it up
okay.
after the DA's last.
No?
Allow the attorney to make his closing statement and the attorney.
Now?
Now,
Right.
Okay, Mr. Audie, will you please make your closing statement?
I'm sorry, we're not gonna do the opposition.
The opposition will go next.
Okay.
They'll go last.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to take the time now to say how sorry I am to the son and the daughter, because I realized the mistake that I made, that what they're missing with Mr. Rowland as their best friend, their life coach, their hero, their father. I'd like to take the time to apologize to the wife. I realize now through my training what she has missed with her husband, her support system, the glue that holds the family together, her happiness, her soulmate. I'd like to apologize to the sister. I realize what you miss in your best friend as well. And I'd like to apologize to his friends, the people he served with in the military, and the rest of the community and society. Because at the time, I didn't know, but what I do know now is that the victim is broad, that it casts it out on the entire community with a ripple effect of all the people that were affected by this horrendous crime. And from 16 to 43 years old, I have rehabilitated myself and changed the way that I think. I changed my ideals, my principles, and my beliefs, where I use better thinking.
Thank you, Mr. Key.
We'll hear from the attorney.
Okay, this time we will hear from the attorney, Ms. Hutchinson.
On December 30th, 1996, I had a rifle pointed at him with one instruction: to shoot the man at the door, a man he had never met before, and a man he had no animosities for. His decision, this inability at 16 years old to get out of that situation caused a great harm to a family and a community. And it led Audie down a path of self-destruction once he got into prison. Feelings of unworthiness for taking Mr. Rowland's life permeated his mind. It was evident in his actions. 27 years later, Audie is still haunted by his decision. The anguish, the pain, and the sorrow, the regret are so much a part of his day, it almost feels ingrained in his DNA. The isolation from his family, the uncomfortableness with life in prison, and his youth led to outbursts and disciplinary write-ups. But these are all things to be expected. You see, when Miller versus Alabama was decided, They identified these traits in the youth: short-sightedness, impulsiveness, and susceptibility to peer influences. But they also recognize that these traits are less fixed in youth, and that over time, their true character will develop and come to the forefront. And with that guidance, this board produced guidelines to measure the character, maturity, and rehabilitation of the now adult that enter prisons for the young. So with that, I'd like to just quickly review Audie against these guidelines. We've already discussed the age and circumstances of the offense and the hallmark features of youth: peer pressure, susceptibility to those influences. But today, Audie has shown growth and remorse and maturity. His contribution to the welfare of others and his volunteer work, his facilitating classes, have been evident in his record. He's even signed up for NA and AA classes to help others with addiction. He entered prison with a 9th grade education, but has gained his GED. He's done carpentry school, crew management, and now HVAC school. In addition, everything that was brought up in his previous parole hearing, he has completed any recommendations from the previous board. He's maintained his disciplinary record and done community service. He's truly sorry for the pain that he caused and the great loss to the Rowland family, and has truly changed himself inside and out. Because of Audie's demonstrated growth, maturity, and rehabilitation, we humbly request this board grant his parole with any conditions that the board deems necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. At this time, we're going to go to the opposition statements. And we will begin with people that are on Zoom. It will be Ms. Kathy Walker, the victim's wife, Matt Rowland, the victim's son, Linda Rowland, the victim's sister. Present watching on Zoom will be David Henderson. He's a friend. Emily Coop, who is the victim's daughter. And then here at headquarters to represent the district attorney's office from Caddo will be Ms. Leon Fitzgerald. So we will start off. Ms. Walker, are you ready?
I am.
Okay, you go ahead.
I apologize that my picture is kind of dark, but that's just the way my camera does that. It's very unfortunate that you can't see this picture of Russ.
Thank you, ma'am.
I just want to point out that he was 17 at the time when he, can you hear me? Can y'all hear me okay?
Just give us a second.
One moment. Please, just a moment.
Hey, I'm sorry.
Please
That's
proceed.
okay. I just wanted to show his picture and tell you at this time, Russ Rowland was 17 when he went into the military. Russ Rowland was my husband. He was 42 on December the 30th of 1996 when Audie shot and killed him. His daughter Emily, 14, in her freshman year of high school. His son Matt, 11. On this day, Matt was in Russ's care. They had just returned from what became their final father-son hunting trip. Russ was lured to pick up owed rent money. When he arrived, he was ambushed. Matt put on his shoes to go with his dad that day. I praise God that Matt changed his mind and decided not to go. Can you imagine what would have happened if he had been there? Our lives forever changed the day Russ was killed, all for $141 in his wallet. He also robbed Emily and Matt of a lifetime of their father's love. He was not able to be at military recognitions, graduations, and weddings, job successes, nor tell them the jokes that he was so well known for. Russ missed out on critical years and opportunities to influence his children. And he now has 6 grandchildren that will never know him. Being a single working parent during my children's teenage years was not easy emotionally or financially. Our children always maintained jobs to supplement financial obligations, and I'm proud that I taught my children that they must work for what they have. Clearly, that is not what Audie thought. Russ served his country as a Marine. He began a life of working and building his family. He held down multiple jobs at a time. He became a realtor, a home builder, and invested in rental property to provide for his family. He was a talented craftsman, enjoyed hunting, fishing, and people. Russ contributed positively to the community. helped those less fortunate, had many friends, and made others laugh, and he was also a Christian. Audie participated in the planning of the ambush. He had many opportunities to stop it. I wonder if he ever has nightmares and sees us screaming in pain and pleading for his life. This is a lasting image for me. All choices have consequences, good or bad. Some cannot be undone. Any relaxation to Audie to the sentence degrades the credibility of our judicial system. Statistics show that 60% of people that commit serious crimes will offend again. This is not an isolated incident for Audie, but what it elevated to. He showed Russ no mercy. And honestly, I'm fearful for him being released back into the community for the safety of all. He's demonstrated this capacity to hurt and kill, and I just thank you for your consideration. I know it's a difficult position to put the board in.
Well, Ms. Walker, it's also understandable that it was difficult for you to have to reopen these old wounds that you
Absolutely.
talked about. So, my condolences to you for that. Okay, now we're going to go to Matt Rowland. Are you available to speak, Matt?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay.
I did not prepare a statement, but I just want to tell you right now that, you know, as he sits there today, this is the very first time that I personally have ever heard the words "I'm sorry" out of his mouth. You can see my sister shaking her head. You know, we've been told over and over and over that they've apologized and apologized. Today's the first day it's ever come out of his mouth where I've seen it and heard it. You say you've taken all these victims advocates courses and all this. I think you need to retake a lot more of them, because the story you just told, the one thing that you did miss out on that I really picked up on was your accountability and ownership of what you did. I spoke at Danny's hearing recently, and I got very emotional because I'm tired of dealing with this. Y'all are in my life every day, and I have to do this every couple of years, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting. I want to move on from you and having to deal with this. I'm tired of watching my sister cry and struggle having to deal with this every day. Go away. Leave my family alone. You know, you talk about the carpentry classes, the HVAC classes that you did. Well, you know, somebody getting out of prison with all that, my dad would have been the very first one to offer you a job and put you into a residence to get you on your feet. But you took that away.
Just for a second. I want you to say everything you're saying, but just tell it to us.
Yeah.
Say to us.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm telling it to
don't
y'all.
say what you need to say, though.
This is my time to speak, please.
Okay.
I'm against this wholeheartedly. You know, I'll tell you the exact same story I told Danny recently. My son, my firstborn, is 11 years old. That's the age I was when my father was taken from me. And I look at him every other day, and I know what me and him go through, and I know what experiences we have. And it pisses me off to no extent that you took those experiences away from me. You took those experiences away from my sister. So if you think you'll ever get forgiveness from me, even as a Christian, you're strongly misguided. That's all I've got to say.
Well, Matt, I appreciate your words, and I know that you have every reason, because like I said to your mother, this just reopens all the pain and the hurt and the loss. So I understand that. Okay, now we're going to go to Linda.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Linda Rowland.
Yes. I'm Linda. My brother is Russ Rowland, who was murdered by Audie Keith. This is the last photo of Russ taken the day before his murder. It's the last photo of Russ with his son, Matt. The only thing true about Audie's story is that he shot Russ and he got his wallet from the truck. Audie knew the morning of December 30th, 1996, that he was going to help a friend kill and rob my brother Russ. Audie went to his friend's house several days prior, where the scheme to kill and murder Russ was planned. He and his friends even made a plan to dispose of Russ by putting his dead body in a sleeping bag, take it to a friend's where they would cut it up with a chainsaw and dump it in a swamp. Why didn't Audie go home that day and tell somebody? Audie had nothing to gain from participating in this scheme with his friends. Audie didn't even know Russ. Why did Audie leave his house that morning knowing he was going to take part in a murder robbery? After shooting Russ in the abdomen with the intent to kill him, Audie went to Russ's truck and took his wallet. If he felt threatened, as he stated, why didn't Audie run to his house and call for help? In the 2016 resentencing hearing of Audie, he lashed out and was disrespectful to Judge Emanuel. She repeatedly asked him to calm down. When he didn't, she had Audie escorted from the courtroom by 2 deputies. At Audie's parole hearing in June of 21, Audie took no responsibility for his actions. He showed no remorse and offered no apology to our family when he spoke. We learned at that hearing that Audie had received 60 disciplinary write-ups while in Angola, 13 of which were sex acts. I feel that with his limited social skills, Audie will not thrive in society. I feel that his lack of coping and decision-making abilities will be strongly impaired. I know if Audie is released, my family will live in fear, knowing he is in our community. I would request a no contact order and that he be ordered to live outside Caddo or Bossier Parish. In less time than I've been given to speak, my family's life was changed forever. The impact of Audie's action is never ending. Mr. Freeman, you may remember that my family and friends were in Baton Rouge last October to plead with you to uphold the death penalty of Audie's co-conspirator and the other participant in Russ's murder. You heard the grief that my family still lives with. Russ never got to experience the joy of his own children grow up. He was deprived of knowing his beautiful 6 grandchildren. I hope that you never have to feel the pain we've endured or experienced a tragedy such as this. I pray that you deny Audie Keith the opportunity for parole. Please support Audie's original sentence of life without benefit of parole that was promised to our family.
Ms. Rowan, thank you so much. And just like your nephew said, and his wife said, this is very, this does open old wounds all the time. So we understand your grief and your sorrow. Thank you very much for your statements. At this time, we're going to recognize Ms. Fitzgerald from the District Attorney's Office at Caddo.
Hi.
Hey,
Good morning.
good morning.
Yes, I'm Leanne Fitzgerald. I'm the director of the Victim Assistance Program for the Caddo Parish DA's office. And I had just started working at the DA's office whenever this crime happened. I remember it very vividly because it was so shocking and horrendous to our entire community. It was in the Blanchard area, which is north of Shreveport, and it's a small community where a lot of people knew the Rowlands, had grown up with them, gone to school with them. It was just one of those things that you never forget, that the community never forgets about. And the defendant, Mr. Keith, had been hanging with this crew all day. He knew what Danny Irish was up to. And he knew when Danny called Russ to come back over to the trailer so they could rob him. He knew that that was going down. He knew that Danny had guns, but he still hung around. He chose to stay there, knowing what was about to go down, knowing the plan. And it was only after Mr. Rowland was shot dead and had been dragged inside the house and blood was being cleaned up that he went into the woods and basically thought, I better get out of here. But not until he had even gone to Mr. Rowland's truck and fetched his wallet for Danny Irish. This was not a split-second decision, as Ms. Hutchison and others have referred to it as. He had plenty of opportunity to get away from this, plenty of opportunity to stop it from happening, to try to help Mr. Rowland. He could have called 911, but he didn't. And this doesn't seem like the behavior of someone who did not want to be involved in this or who did not want to participate, which is the first thing that Mr. Keith always says is that I didn't participate or I didn't want to participate. Well, that's not what your actions reflect. So he certainly didn't seem remorseful on December 30th of 1996 that Mr. Rowland was dead. Mr. Rowland was a businessman. As I mentioned, he was only 42 years old. He was raising his children. He was living an all-American life along with his family. He was a former Marine who, as Ms. Walker mentioned, at 17 years old, signed papers willingly to serve this country. As you've heard, he left 2 small children behind that Miss Kathy had to rear without a dad. That photo that Linda showed of Matt and his dad, I've seen that photo many times over the years, and it hurts my heart every time I see it. And I think, thank God they have that day together, even though it's bittersweet to see that photograph. I grew up myself deer hunting with my dad, and this is the South, so I can just imagine the excitement of that day, how proud Mr. Rowland was that Matt had killed a deer, and that it was just a good memory and a good day. And on that day, Matt had a father, the father that many kids wish for, on December 30th of 1996. But on December 31st of 1996, just like that, he no longer had a dad, thanks to the really poor decisions of Mr. Keith and his cohorts. Matt and Emily became the kids who had to return to school shyly and traumatized because their father had gotten killed over the Christmas break while everybody else was celebrating the holidays with their family. They had a funeral for their father. I'm sure they had other kids looking at them awkwardly, not knowing what to say because their dad had been the victim of the murder that the entire community was talking about. And in regards to Audie's record, we had the parole hearing in 2021. Frankly, I would describe it as disastrous, and I think that the panel of board members at that time would probably agree with me. Audie showed no remorse for his part in the murder, even after almost 27 years. I commend him for not having any write-ups in the past 5 years. I hope he's on the right path now, but we still can't forget about the 58 write-ups in the 22 years before that, 5 or 6 of which were sex-related. These were not offenses because he wasn't making his bed or he was waking up late. He was caught with a cell phone, which is a huge security risk for a prison and everyone inside of it. And I don't know what all the sex offenses were about, but I just don't think that almost 5 years of good behavior cancel out 22 years of unacceptable behavior. If it took 22 years for Mr. Keith to adjust to prison in such a way that he can conform and follow the rules, then how long do we think it will take him in the outside world to do that with all of its challenges and temptations? And is it worth the risk to find that out? So yes, he was only 16 when this happened. Yes, There may have been coercion by the defendant. And yes, we have all these studies now, which I respect, about the development of the brain being later than once thought. But what was Mr. Keith's frontal lobe doing in 2016 when he cursed his attorney in open court in front of the judge and had to be shut down, which has been referred to today? Or when one of our prosecutors and investigators came to interview him in preparation for the Danny Irish trial, and he lied and accused them of attacking him. An investigation was conducted on all of that, and his allegations were unfounded. And so the studies that I've read show that by the mid-20s, a male brain should be fully developed in the ways that provide for self-control, impulse control, sound decision-making. But I submit to you that Audie's was still deficient long after that. And clearly, he works on a long learning curve. So I think we need more than 5 years of good behavior to show us that he's ready for the outside world. You know, what it basically comes down to is this is a murder of a human being, a military veteran of our country who was shot first by Mr. Keith and finished off by Danny Irish as he laid on the ground begging for his life. All because they wanted to commit a robbery. This board has 34 letters that I'm sure you all have reviewed of loved ones, friends, family of Mr. Rowland, who took the time to sit down and express to strangers what the loss has meant to them. And I submit to you that this is just a drop in the bucket. I still encounter people to this day in the community. When they hear where I work, they say, "Oh, do you know the Rowland family?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do know the Rowlands." And I just hear, "Oh, Linda and I went to school together," or "I grew up on their street," or "I went to school with the kids." Good people. Russ and I used to work together. So this was a loss, and these stories are not platitudes. This is everyday life for these people. And 27 years is a long time, but Mr. Keith is only 43 years old. He is older than Russ Rowland made it to be. 5 years of good behavior does not warrant parole for a murderer. Please make Audie prove that he can continue to earn the grace and mercy of this board. I am asking the board very respectfully on behalf of the Caddo District Attorney, James Stewart, and on behalf of the Rowland family and the community at large to please deny Mr. Keith's request for parole. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fitzgerald. Thank you for your comprehensive statement also. At this time, the panel will vote, and they'll start with me because it was my case. Mr. Keith, I heard everything you had to say, and you have lots of improvement in your life. Can y'all hear over there? Mr. Keith? Okay. You have made wonderful improvements in your life, and you know, taking the different classes and the HVAC, all of those things will help you. So I listened to everything you had to say, and I listened to your attorney, and I listened to your mother, and everything you said was important. But at the same time, everything the victim's family had to say was important. His name was Russ Rowland, and he was a veteran, and he did have a little boy and a little girl and a wife that loved him. And in that instant, their life changed forever, and it will never be the same because generations will pass by, and he'll just be something that they will verbally make a memory in their life. They won't get to sit on his lap and hear stories. And like they said, he was a good storyteller. They loved him very much. And thank goodness for the last photo that his son has of them hunting together. Those are the kind of things that I think of too. I think of his daughter, Emily, who didn't have her father to walk her down the aisle. She got married. I think of Matt and Emily when they had their children, and Kathy when she had the grandchildren, and she wasn't able to ever look next to her and say, Russ, remember when Matt did that, or remember Emily did that? Those are the kind of future things that they've lost because of this murder. So I do think of that. And my vote today is to deny because of extreme law enforcement opposition. And Ms. Fitzgerald told the truth. I did read those 34 letters. And that's a lot. We might get 2 or 3 sometimes, but 34 speaks volumes. So extreme victim opposition on those 2 circumstances, I vote to deny. Mr. Freeman?
Okay, Mr. Audie, first off, I want to thank everyone that showed up today, both from your family and especially from the victim's family. It's a shame that we have to reopen old wounds because of certain laws that were passed after y'all thought he was going to do life in prison. So, you know, Mr. Audie, basically, you need to accept more responsibility. My vote is to deny extensive victim opposition and strong law enforcement and seriousness of the offense.
My vote is the same as my colleagues for the same reasons. Nothing more to add.
Okay. At this time, Mr. Keith, today your parole has been denied. And this concludes our business today, and we will adjourn at 10:41.